Hello, this is a quick update on my personal trading challenge. If you haven't seen the earlier videos, I set myself a challenge to see how hard it is to trade a small account. And in this case, my small account is starting at $100. And my challenge was to take $100 and make a profit of 100% in 100 days. And I've explained that because there's a small account, you need to be very careful about the risks that you take. And I showed in the earlier videos some calculations of how you can make profits without going to extremes, because the big risk with small accounts is that you overtrade or you take too much risk in an attempt to make too much money too quickly. I started these videos at the end of day 25, so after the 5th week, and at that stage I was already up to 2/3 of my target, so things were going well. Then on the next week, up to day 30, despite my personal advice, I took some gold trades and lost almost all of the profits I'd made. So I'm now at day 35, the end of week number 7, and I have had some recovery. You can see here on the screen, my balance is now at $121.61, so I'm at 21% profit after 35 days. Before I go too far, let me look back at the gold, and this is the situation that I had at the end of last week. I took my gold trades around here. There are a couple of small ones here that were in and out, but I took them about here and exited down here at a significant loss. Now, what we can see here, and a lot of people will look at, is that if I had held those trades, the price has actually come back to the price where I took them out. So I could have exited those trades at zero loss. But if I just calculate the distance here, that's about 3,700 points. And the distance to the lowest price here is 5,300 points. If I had held those trades until they reached this low point, waiting for them to come back up, it would have blown my entire account. So not just the profit that I'd made would have been lost, but my initial capital would be gone as well, because the broker would have closed out the account by now. So this is a bit of a trap for people who maybe take a loss and then look at it later and say, if I'd only held it, I could have made that money back. You have to look at what it would have cost you to hold that. And in this case, it would have cost me the entire account. So while I wasn't happy taking the loss, it was better than holding those trades and hoping for it to come back. It could have turned around, of course, much earlier, somewhere around here, but it didn't. It also could have gone much further backwards before turning around. So that's gold. Now, because I was so far behind, I was at day number 30 and effectively had 0% profit, I traded a little differently. If I go to my history, the first trades I took for the week were Australian dollar, US dollar. And instead of taking an approach of simply setting a take profit, I did set a take profit, but I kept creeping it upwards. What I was trying to do was use a trailing stop, because if you've seen the earlier videos, there were many times where I hit the take profit, but the price just kept going. So I tried an approach here where I set a trailing stop. This first trade only made 44 cents, and here it is. Let me zoom in a little. The first trade, the price started to climb, and I moved the trailing stop up, and then the price came back, and I was closed out fairly quickly for only a very small profit. The next trade went much further. Now, I did give up quite a bit of profit. If I just use the crosshairs again, I made 95 points of profit, and I gave up an extra 222 because I was trailing. And this is something you'll see anytime you use trailing stop, and it's tempting to say, oh, if I'd trailed more closely, then I could have closed out closer to this high. But the problem with that, of course, is with the fluctuations in these candles, you may have been closed out much earlier as well. So I was happy to take that. That all happened on Monday. On Tuesday, I did the same thing again. The price had done what I was looking for. It had gone past one of the pivot point lines, come back across, looking like it was a strong move. I entered a trade here. The price immediately went down, but then came back up again. So I trailed that. And in this case, I did trail until very close to the highest price before it was closed out. So I made a good profit on that one as well. In day 3, or Wednesday, I changed to trading Australian dollar CAD. So let's go to the Aussie CAD. I'll zoom in on that as well. There it is. And I followed a similar approach. where I set the trade and trailed it. Now it did go backwards quite a lot when I initially took this trade. When I actually took this, the price was moving in an upwards direction quite quickly, and almost as soon as I took the trade, it reversed. So I didn't catch that straight away. It sank down here, but by the time I came back to look at this trade, the price was already on the way up again, so I allowed it to do that. I set a trailing stop. No, I actually set a take profit on this one, and it hit my take profit at the target, which, let's just see what that was. Yeah, 176 points. So that made a good profit as well. But what I had been looking for here, this candle had shown significant downward movement and then reversed. So I had a good pin bar here. This one then was already moving upwards, and I expected that to continue, but it didn't. It turned into a pin bar in reverse. And before I noticed it, because I just took the trade and then went to do other things, the price was down here. So I just let it come back, and it did hit my take profit. The next day was another Aussie US. Now, I was traveling at the time, so I didn't have all of the facilities of running any kind of experts or automated trailing stop. And I also traded incorrectly. I took a trade here and closed it out here. But where I thought I was taking a trade for 0.02 lots, I actually took a trade for 0.2 lots. So it was a much larger trade than I wanted. It exhausted a lot of my available margin. And so I grabbed a profit as soon as I noticed that, and the price was down here. It did go a little bit lower for the rest of the day, but then came back up. So if I hadn't caught that mistake, then I could easily have blown the account again with such a large trade for a small account. And this was just a trade that I took on my phone, so I wasn't looking too closely. So as it turned out, a small profit, not a great one. It was a small profit mainly because I had such a large trade on, and I caught it quickly after the move down. The next day was back to Aussie CAD. And this again did what I was looking for. Price came down through one of the pivot points, reversed, came up. Now I normally wait until the price closes above, but in this case I grabbed that as soon as it hit the pivot point, again because I was out of the office and I had to take it while I could. It turned out then that it reversed and came back. Now if I had waited for a bar to close above the pivot point, it would have been about the same place. And all I did with that was to set a take profit, which it hit quite easily. Although in this case, if I'd waited for the close of that bar, you can see that the place where I hit the take profit was on that same bar, so I would have had to wait for the next bar. Still would have made that target. There are some strategies that would say at this point, take the trade and set the take profit close to the next pivot point. I'm still holding to my approximately 150 points of profit there. So the end result, this is the summary just for the trades for this week. $20.40 profit out of my $100 initial starting balance, which gives me $121.61. So 21% is behind a strictly linear average where I should be at 35% by now, but I'm not worried about that. I'm not going to try to overtrade to make it up. I did say at the beginning that I was simply setting it as a target, and I wanted to avoid the emotion of trying to overtrade in order to make up those profits. So we'll just see how I go. Anyway, that's my update for the end of day 35. Let's see how I go by day 40. If you're finding this useful, then click the like button because it does help the channel. And if you'd like to see more of these updates, then click subscribe and click the bell icon to get notifications when I release new videos. Thank you for watching.